Here we're given the graph of a function f, and we want to sketch the graph of its derivative. Just a sketch. Not very accurate, but just to give us a feeling for the salient features of the graph of f prime. So how do we do this? Well, we have to remember that f prime at a particular point A is equal to the slope of the tangent line above A. Okay, so for example, if I'm over here at this particular point A, and I look at the graph of f and I draw the tangent line, oops, that's not a very good tangent line. Okay, a little better. So the slope of this tangent line will give me the value of f prime at A. Now notice that in this case the slope is positive. So the value of f prime of A is a positive number. So when I go to graph the f point A comma f prime of A, it's above the x-axis. That'll be a point maybe here. So this number, this height, represents the slope. And it's a positive number, so it belongs above the x-axis. Okay, that's true for all these points nearby A. So at that point I have a positive slope. Notice that this slope is a little bit less than what happens here at this point. So at this particular value of x, I'll have a smaller slope. Maybe that'll be the height. That height represents how big this slope is. As I get closer and closer to this point, the slope gets smaller and smaller. And finally, when I'm here at this peak, this local peak, I have a horizontal tangent line, meaning the slope here is equal to 0. The slope of the tangent line is equal to 0. What does that mean about f prime? That means f prime is 0 there. So I have actually an x-intercept because the value of the function is 0. So I can start to sketch what happens just along this segment here. The graph of f prime is a decreasing function. It decreases finally until it hits 0. The same thing occurs, same kind of analysis can be done to understand what happens along this segment of the curve. Here, at this point, f prime is negative because the slope of this line is a negative number. So in that case, actually, the value of f prime is negative, so the graph of the point a comma f prime actually lies below the x-axis. And that happens until I get to here. And this is a place where I again have horizontal tangent line. So here the slope is 0. So between where the slope is 0 here and the slope is 0 here, the slopes of the tangent lines are all negative, which means that the function f prime, its values are negative. And then they become 0. They become 0 because the slope is 0. So here's the graph of f prime. The graph of f prime starts off positive because the slopes are positive. And then at this point, the slope is 0, so the value of the function f prime is 0. And then it goes across here, and the values are all negative, so these heights are all negative because the slopes are negative. At this point, slope is equal to 0, so the value of f prime is 0. Then in this region, I actually have an increasing function, so the slopes are positive. All these slopes of these tangent lines are all positive. They're positive up until this point, when again, the slope is 0. So the value of f prime, which is the slope of f, is going to be positive up until I get to this point where the slope is 0. Over here, the slopes are negative. So the value of f prime becomes negative, meaning it goes below the x-axis. So that's a sketch of the derivative of f prime. Now, the important points here were to figure out where the derivative was 0. The derivative was 0 at these particular points. And that's because we had a peak, a valley, and a peak. We had horizontal tangent lines in these places. And then f prime is going to be positive along this interval because it's increasing and the slopes are positive. Between this 0 and that 0, the slopes are negative. The function is decreasing. So the function is below, the function f prime is below the x-axis. Between this point and this point, the slopes are positive for f. The slopes of f are positive. So the value of the derivative is positive up until this point, where again, the slope is 0. So f prime is 0. And then the slopes are negative, so the values of f prime are negative.